Today we're going to talk about your most important piece of training equipment. Your most important piece of training equipment is not your belt, it's not your shoes, it's not your wrist straps, it's not your knee sleeves, it's not the barbell, it's not the squat rack.
You gotta be kidding me.
All of those things can be replaced. You can borrow someone else's shoes if you need to. You can use a different barbell, you can use a different squat rack. But the one thing that you cannot replace, the one thing that is specific to you is your training log.
I did not see that coming.
So your training log is specific to you, but also it's important for a number of other reasons. The training log is what separates exercise from training. Now, there's nothing wrong with exercising. Exercising is what you do when you want to get hot and you want to get sweaty and you want to get tired and you want to feel like you've accomplished something. But training is what you do when you actually want to accomplish something. So before we go into how we're going to keep a training log, and it's not that complicated, a couple other reasons why this is real important. The training log contains your history, right? So it contains all of your data. So yes, of course, it contains your work sets and your warm-ups and all of that, but it also contains, how things went on a given day. You can write down notes for yourself, and I encourage you to do this. Today was a lousy day. Today was a great day. 185 felt heavy today. But someday, you write down notes for yourself like that, someday 185 is going to be a last warm-up, and then you can look back and you can remember when 185 was heavy for a work set and now it's just a warm-up. So it's got your history, but it's also your compass. It's also going to guide where you're going, because with training there is a plan. There are goals that we are trying to achieve. So of course, before you leave for the day, you're going to plan out your next workout. You're going to know what you're going to hit for your next work sets, but you're also going to write down things in your training log like your goals. I want to squat 285 pounds. I want to get my first pull-up. I want to bench this at my next meet. So it's got your history. It's also your compass for where you're going. All right, let's dive into how to keep a training log. Again, it's not that complicated. A few basic concepts go into keeping a training log. Number one, my recommendation is every single page gets its own week, or every week gets its own page. So no matter how many training days you have in a week, 3 is really common, but you can even fit 4 or 5 training days in a week on one page. Now, if you don't finish that week's training, let's say you're supposed to train Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you only train Monday and Wednesday, when you start the next week, don't use that same page. Even if it was an incomplete week, just move on to the next page. It's a real nice habit to develop, to just give each week its own page. Number two, how do you divide up your page into that week? Real easy process. You're going to divide your book up into you're going to divide your page up into however many training days you have that week. So let's say we're training Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So you're going to divide your page at the beginning of the week up into 3 days. So here's my page. I'm going to draw a line about a third of the way down. I'm going to draw another line about another third of the way down. And this will ensure that I can fit all of my training into those boxes. It's going to kind of force me to color inside the lines. If I write large, it will remind me that, hey, at least for this purpose, I may need to write a little bit smaller. This will guarantee that I get everything in on one page. So if I'm writing out my actual workout, let's say on that particular day I'm going to squat and I'm going to press and I'm going to deadlift. Now, by the way, you can divide your book up vertically if you want to as well. My preference is just horizontal. This is your training log. Do what you want, but it needs to be legible. It needs to be consistent. So let's say I'm squatting, pressing, deadlifting. Up here on Monday, usually up in the left-hand corner, I'm going to write the day and the date. So it's Monday and let's just say it's January 1st. Everybody starts training on January 1st, right? So I'm going to write my squat right here, I'm going to write my press right here, and I'm going to write my deadlift right here. So we're going to kind of zoom in on one of these days and actually write out now the 4 components that go along with every lift. So we're going to squat. We're going to squat. The prescription for the day is that we are going to squat 3 sets of 5 reps, 3 by 5. Remember, reps always go second. That's how you can keep track of things. So the first component of the lift is your prescription. What's the goal for the day? I'm going to squat 3 sets of 5 reps. The second component is the warm-ups. Now, you have to know, of course, what you're going to do for your work sets. Let's say my squat for the day is going to be 235 pounds. So I'm supposed to squat 235 for 3 sets of 5. So now I'm going to write out my warm-ups. So let's say I'm going to start with the empty bar, and I'm going to do 5 reps and 2 sets, and then I go to 95 pounds, and I go to 5 reps and 1 set. If you're only doing 1 set, the 1 is kind of optional, but I'm going to leave the 1 in there just to be consistent. I confess I probably wouldn't actually write this 1 in my training log, but to be consistent, we'll do it. So we do 95 for a set of 5. We do 135 pounds for a set of 3. We've got a couple of videos on how to actually warm up, how to kind of choose these weights, how to structure your weights, and we'll link to those below. So we do 95 for 5, 135 by 3. Let's say we do 185 by 2. Sorry for the bad handwriting. And then what's going to be my last warm-up? Well, let's see, I'm doing 235 pounds. A reasonable rule of thumb, not the only rule out there, but a reasonable rule of thumb is to do somewhere around 90% of your work weight for a single. So 235 pounds, I want to take 10% off of that. So you just move the decimal over 1, so that gives you 23.5. I got to subtract 23.5. Nobody wants to do that, so just subtract, just round, just subtract 25 or 20. So 23.5 or 235 pounds, I'm just going to subtract 20. Let's do 215. Now, technically, it would actually be a little bit closer than 210, but remember, these are warm-ups. The 90% doesn't have to be super precise, so don't worry about that. 215 is easier. It's easier to load. I don't have to use 2.5-pound plates, so I'm going with 215. It's a warm-up. Relax. Now, I'm ready for the third component, which is the work sets. So now I'm moving on to 235 pounds, 5 reps, 3 sets. Remember, again, reps always go second. There's a couple of good reasons for that, one of which is, remember, you don't actually always have to write the number of sets. So if I was just doing 1 set of this, I wouldn't even write the times, whatever. But I'm doing 3 sets, so I got to write that part in there. All right, so that's the third component. We've got the prescription or the goal. We've got the warm-ups. We've got the work sets. The next thing you're going to write down is, what are you going to do next time? So I squatted 235 pounds today. Next time, I'm going to remind myself, I'm going to do 240 pounds. Now, if next time my program was changing, maybe for some reason I'm switching this over to a top set of 5 and 2 back off sets of 5, or something else is going on, I would also note that as well. But my program's not changing. I'm just squatting 240 pounds for 3 sets of 5 next time. So you've got your 4 components here. You've got your goal, you've got your warm-ups, you've got your work sets, you've got your what you're going to do next. But it's also a great idea to write down cues that you need to keep in mind. So for instance, maybe on the squat, you're working on staying mid-foot. So you remind yourself, you write yourself a cue, stay mid-foot. Maybe on the clean, you've got to make sure you've got to finish the movement at the top of the pull. So you write yourself a cue for that. Maybe on the deadlift, you're trying to remember to push the floor away at the start of the movement. These are all good cues to write down, so that on your next workout, when you go back and you look right here and you realize, oh, I have to squat 240 pounds today, you also see that reminder of, oh, stay mid-foot, that's what I'm working on. Cues aren't the only thing. It's also a great idea to write other notes. Maybe 240 moved really well. Write that down. 240 moved great. Maybe you had a lousy training day. Those days happen. Write that down as well. You're a lot more likely to write down notes in a paper and pen training log, which is, by the way, is a wonderful technology for this purpose, as opposed to a digital training log. Now, there's nothing wrong with a digital training log using a note on your phone or a Google spreadsheet or something like that, but my recommendation is keep a paper training log. You're more likely to write this stuff down. Another thing that you want to include in your training log somewhere is a PR sheet. You can use the first page of your training log or the last page of your training log, or just put another piece of paper into that notebook. But have a PR sheet. Keep track of your 1 rep PRs, your 3 rep PRs, your 5 rep PRs, what you've done at a meet versus what you've done in training. It's a great idea to keep track of those things. Hopefully this was useful for you. Let us know if you've got any questions in the comments below, and as always, we hope this helps you get stronger and live better.